We often picture the fall of Adam and Eve as a tragic accident, two people making a bad choice. But that's not how the Bible's original audience would have heard it. In the ancient Near Eastern world, what happened in Eden wasn't a stumble. It was a coup, an attempted overthrow of the divine king. And the curses that follow on the serpent and on Eve and on Adam and the ground carry imagery and meaning that go far beyond what most modern readers realize. As John Walton says, the issue is not that people want to be like God in moral purity, but that they want to be like God in having the authority to determine what is right and wrong. And when we peel back the layers of Genesis 3, this coup rises to the surface. Let's go. Welcome back to the Word Room, where we make difficult Bible passages make sense. This channel is all about diving into the cultural context of the Bible and understanding it correctly. If that interests you, click that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, because we're just getting started. So let's get into it. This is the next video in my Genesis 1 through 3 series, and if you haven't seen those, this video will still make sense, but the link will be down in the description and in the pinned comment below, so you can catch up on the context as soon as you finish this video. When the drama of Genesis 3 unfolds, the serpent zeroes in on one thing: you will be like God, knowing good and evil. There's been a lot of discussion and confusion about what knowing good and evil means. That phrase is not about general moral awareness, just knowing what is right and wrong. Some atheists have attacked the Bible, saying that it's not fair or just because Adam and Eve didn't know right from wrong, so they didn't know that it would be wrong to disobey God.
Presumably, this means that before doing so, they didn't have a knowledge of good and evil. They were in a state of innocence. Therefore, when the serpent came to tempt Eve, how could she have even possibly realized that any evil was at work? If she hadn't eaten of the tree yet, then her actions can't have been knowingly evil, since she didn't have a knowledge of good and evil.
Know right from wrong. How could they possibly know that it was wrong to disobey God and eat from that tree? How can you punish someone for doing something wrong if they didn't know it was wrong?
But that is not what this is talking about. In Hebrew, this is an idiom for the capacity to render authoritative judgment. It is the prerogative of rulers and judges and divine beings. What, you don't believe me? Well, here, let me show you an example. 1 Kings 3, 6 through 9. And Solomon replied, "You have shown great and faithful love to your servant, my father David, because he walked before you in faithfulness, righteousness, and integrity. You have continued this great and faithful love for him by giving him a son to sit on his throne, as it is today. Lord my God, you have now made your servant king in my father David's place. Yet I am just a youth with no experience in leadership. Your servant is among your people you have chosen, a people too many to be numbered or counted. So give your servant a receptive heart to judge your people and to discern between good and evil. For who is able to judge this great people of yours?" This is his response after God has told him that he would give him whatever he asked for. And he asks for a heart to judge rightly and to be able to discern between good and evil, to rule and have leadership amongst the people of Israel. In Hebrew, the word for judge here is shafat. It means to judge, govern, vindicate, to punish, to act as a lawgiver, to be a judge or governor. So Solomon is talking about having the ability to act as a lawgiver and to rule over the people correctly. And he uses the idea of discerning between good and evil, right and wrong, as a way to speak of correctly establishing laws and rule. Scholar Michael Heiser puts it this way: the temptation was to take the right to define morality and reality for themselves and to rule as the supreme leader, an act of rebellion against God's unique authority. And this is not just in the Bible. This shows up all over ancient Near Eastern culture. In Mesopotamian kingship ideology, the gods appointed rulers to determine destinies, meaning they determined the boundaries of human life and law. In the hymn to Shamash, in lines 38 through 41, it says, "You give judgment. You decide the law of the land. You determine good and evil for all peoples." This is nearly identical to what the serpent offers: a share of divine prerogative, to be like God. Scholar John Walton notes, the Hebrew phrase here is connected with the royal and divine right to decide what is good and what is evil. The man and woman grasped at a role that was not theirs. Now we need to remember the context, and if you don't know it, you can see the other videos in this series to gain the fullness of this context. But Eden is sacred space. It's the divine temple of God, the cosmic temple, God's dwelling place. Adam and Eve function as priests in that temple. Again, I have entire videos on that. You can go look at the evidence. In ancient Near Eastern temple ideology, for a priest to claim the throne of God was the ultimate violation. In the hymn to Enlil, lines 119 to 121, it says this: "The priest who seeks the throne is a traitor. He sets his heart against the God. He destroys the order of heaven and earth." This is exactly what is happening in Genesis 3. The first priestly couple of creation is attempting to claim the seat of divine authority. This isn't a new idea. Irenaeus, one of the early church fathers, said this: "Man sought to seize what was beyond him, to become in his own authority what only God is by nature." This passage isn't about breaking a rule to get a snack because it looked tasty. It's about trying to redefine who gets to be the cosmic lawgiver. By taking the fruit, Adam and Eve are saying that they will decide what is good and evil. In ancient Near Eastern political terms, this is treason against the suzerain, the great king. In biblical covenant terms, it's an attempt to dissolve the creator-creation distinction. And in the ancient world, treason against the great king didn't end with the act itself. It led to judgment. In the covenantal world of the Bible, when a vassal rebelled against the suzerain, the great leader, there was a legal sequence. The crime was declared, witnesses confirmed it, and then the sentence was pronounced. Genesis 3 follows that same pattern. The sin is exposed, the offenders are questioned, not because God needs information, but to draw out the reality of what they've done. And then, like a royal court delivering its verdict, God pronounces 3 targeted judgments. One for the serpent, one for the woman, and one for the man that was targeted at the ground. And each is perfectly fitted for the role they played in the rebellion. And they're explained in imagery that the ancient audience would have immediately understood. The first to be addressed is the serpent, the instigator, the deceiver. And if you remember from the previous videos, this wasn't just a regular snake. This was a supernatural being. And his sentence is given in the language of total, permanent humiliation. God says that on your belly you shall go, and dust you shall eat all the days of your life. Now, some people have used this phrase, on your belly you should go, to argue that this is a literal snake, and it's the explanation of how snakes crawled around on their belly and no longer had legs. But that is actually not what the original audience would have understood, and that's a modern idea being read backwards into the ancient text. And we know that it's not talking about a natural snake because that is coupled with eating dirt for the rest of your life, but natural snakes don't eat dirt for the rest of their lives. So this is one sentence. And if the eating dirt isn't literal, then neither is the crawling on the belly. It's all one coherent statement. So what does it mean? In ancient Near Eastern humiliation language, on the belly meant permanent submission. Look at this from the Akkadian Curse of Agade. May your knees be continually bent. May you walk in the dust. May you never rise up from your prostration before the king. We have Egyptian paintings which depict defeated kings laying prone before Pharaoh, a visual representation of on your belly. John Walton says, crawling on the belly describes a condition of ongoing degradation. It is the posture of the vanquished in the ancient Near Eastern honor-shame context. So if crawling away on your belly was about going away in a defeated position, humiliated and defeated, then what does eating dirt have to do with anything? This is a widespread ancient Near Eastern idiom of humiliation and defeat. There are actually biblical parallels to this. In Psalm 72:9, it says, may his enemies lick the dust. And in Micah 7:17, it says, they will lick the dust like a serpent, talking about humiliation and defeat of the enemies. But it's not just in the Bible. This was common amongst all ancient Near Eastern literature. For example, in the hymn to Ninurta, you made them lie down in the dust. Their mouths you filled with dust. You crushed their strength. Their faces you cast to the ground. Picking up on that imagery of filling the mouth with dust, eating dust, being smushed down into the dust face first. You can also find this in the Enuma Elish. They were trampled underfoot, their weapons smashed, they were cast down and made to eat dust. Their bodies lay in heaps. Again, eating dust as defeat or humiliation. Scholar John Day says, eat dust denotes humiliation and defeat in both biblical and extra-biblical sources. It's not about diet, but social position. The combined image here is important. Crawling on your belly is posture, and eating dust is sustenance. And for all your days, both posture and sustenance, it equals the image of total and permanent humiliation. So that's the serpent, but what about Eve's curse? Hey, real quick, I know you're enjoying the video. We'll get back to it in just a second, but I do want to let you know that if you're interested in more content like this, I am posting new content that is not going to be on this channel, new teachings diving even deeper on my Patreon. The link is down in the description below. It's a great way to support the channel as we continue to grow and we get more content out to you. So if you're interested, click the link in the description. Let's get back to the video. God says, I will greatly multiply your pain in childbirth. In pain you shall bring forth children. Your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you. Two parts of this curse. So first, let's talk about pain in childbearing. In the ancient Near East, childbearing wasn't just personal. It was tied to survival, it was tied to family honor, and tied to inheritance. In other words, it was tied to the bigger community than just the individual mother. Now look at this in the lamentation of the destruction of Sumer and Ur. Mothers who gave birth now sit with their children in misery. The pangs of birth are doubled in their bodies. This lament is important for understanding the cultural context. This lament is showing that this motif of doubling or multiplying pain in childbirth wasn't about physical pain. The context of the lament is the key. The third dynasty of Ur had become the last major Sumerian dynasty. Its collapse marked the end of Sumerian dominance, and it marked the rise of the Amorite and Elamite powers. This lament reflects this cataclysm, and it reflects it not just as political loss, but as cosmic disorder, gods abandoning the temples, and chaos spreading through the land. These laments were ritual texts that were likely performed in public to lament and explain what was happening. They combine lamentation, theological reflection, and appeals to the gods. They give voice to the destruction and the devastation of ordinary people, but they frame it within the context of divine judgment. Birth, which is normally associated with hope, life, and a future, is now linked to double suffering. Instead of relief after labor, mothers continue to feel the birth pangs in the aftermath of destruction. The pain never stops. It has been intensified by loss and famine. And this isn't just about individual grief. In ancient Near Eastern thought, cities are like extended families. The suffering of mothers and children embodies the total breakdown of the community. The lament emphasizes that the city's patron gods abandoned their temples, allowing the destruction to come. The maternal suffering is poetic, and it's echoing the city's suffering. Just as mothers are deprived of that joy, the city is deprived of divine care. In Mesopotamian laments, metaphors of birth and fertility and motherhood symbolize the future of the people. If mothers and children are in misery, it signals the very future of Ur is cut off. The curse of Eve is echoing this idea. It's not a promise that she would have physical pain in childbirth as if she wouldn't have had any pain giving birth before the fall. She's a human with a nervous system. There would have been pain in childbirth before this. This curse isn't about physical pain. It's echoing the metaphor of pain in childbirth that was common in that culture to speak of loss of the community, the larger community. It's about the future of humanity living where God has abandoned the cosmic temple and they are living in misery, separated from God. And I'm not just pulling this from outside sources. This mirrors the laments in the Bible as well. For example, Lamentations 2:11-12 depicts infants fainting in the streets and asking their mothers for food. It's using that mother and child imagery to show the fate of the community as a whole, the city being in destruction. But what about the other part of the curse? Her desire will be for her husband, and he will rule over her. That word desire is the Hebrew word teshuka, and we see it again in Genesis chapter 4, verse 7, describing sin's desire to control Cain. In Genesis 4, teshuka clearly describes a threatening urge to dominate. God tells Cain, sin's desire is for you, but you must rule over it. The structure mirrors the structure of Genesis 3:16, the woman's desire for the man and the man's rule over the woman. This suggests a struggle for dominance, not a romantic longing. Old Testament scholar Susan Foe put it starkly. In Genesis 3:16, the woman's desire is not a longing for companionship, but the urge to control. The consequence of sin is that instead of mutuality, there is conflict. She seeks to master, but he dominates. The Hebrew word for the word rule is the verb mashal, and it's the standard word for rulership or dominion. It's the word used in Genesis 1:18 for the sun and moon ruling the day and night. It's used to describe kings ruling nations and masters ruling servants. It's not gentle leadership, it's dominance. So the picture is not Eve will long for her husband, and he will lovingly lead her. She will attempt to control him, but he will assert power over her. The partnership that God designed in Genesis 1:27-28, male and female ruling together over creation, fractures into a hierarchy riddled with struggle. We actually see similar themes in ancient wisdom texts. In the instructions of Shurappak, we see this: do not provoke the wife of your youth. Her anger is a storm in your house. Peace is better than strife. Marital conflict was already a recognized cultural reality in Mesopotamia. The dialogue of pessimism, which is a Babylonian dialogue, portrays the wife as both desirable and dangerous. Listen to what it says. Take a wife and children. The man who has children secures his name, but the wife is a trap. The wife is a snare. The early church fathers saw Genesis 3:16 as describing the brokenness of the marital bond post-fall, not God's original creation. John Chrysostom says this: for she who once was equal is now subjected, and that not by nature, but because of disobedience. This is important. The verse is describing consequence, not prescription. It is God announcing how sin will distort the marriage relationship, not commanding men to dominate women. Now, this doesn't mean that men aren't supposed to be leaders and men aren't supposed to have authority. It's just meaning you're supposed to have gentle, loving authority, partnering with your wife as you are the head of the household. But it does not mean you're supposed to dominate your wife. That is the result of sin. Now we get to Adam's curse. God says, cursed is the ground because of you. Thorns and thistles it shall bring forth. By the sweat of your face you shall eat bread. In ancient Near Eastern thought, kings ensured the land's fertility by maintaining favor with the gods. A cursed land meant a broken divine order. In the Sumerian farmer's instructions, it says this: if the gods are angered, your field will not yield. The thorns will grow tall, and the furrows will mock your plow. Genesis flips Eden's imagery. Adam, once tending sacred ground in abundance, now wrestles with a hostile land. Scholar Bruce Walke says, the man's sin brings disorder to creation. The ground, like the serpent, is cursed. The man's royal dominion is now frustrated. In the lamentation over the destruction of Ur, it says this: the earth denied its produce. Fields turned to clay. The plowman's song ceased in the land. To an ancient audience, Adam's curse symbolized a total collapse of cosmic order. Fertility, in both humans and the land, was proof of divine blessing, but sterility was proof of divine judgment. Later scriptures in the Bible pick up this same theme. Deuteronomy 28:23-24 says, the heavens over your head shall be bronze, and the earth under you shall be iron. The Lord will make the rain of your land powder. Hosea 4:3 says, sin causes the land to mourn, and beasts, birds, and fish to perish. The imagery of sweat highlights anxious, back-breaking labor. It contrasts with the effortless provision of Eden. Instead of serving as a priest in sacred space, Adam now sweats as a peasant outside of the garden. And then comes the final blow of the curse to Adam: for you are dust, and to dust you will return. The image bearer, designed for life with God, now faces separation and inevitable death, separated from God, exile from sacred space. The irony of this is sharp. Adam reached for divinity, and then he's reminded of mortality. He tried to seize the throne, but will return to the dirt. Adam's curse is not just about difficult farming. It's the collapse of the original vocation. Priest-king turned exile. Harmony turned into hostility. Life turned to death. It's the unraveling of creation's order. Adam's rebellion unravels not only his relationship with God, but creation's harmony itself. The ground becomes a daily reminder of lost privilege, sacred service replaced by survival labor. Each curse strikes at the area of attempted exaltation. The serpent, seeking to rise above humanity and God, is cast down to permanent humiliation. Eve, seeking wisdom and influence and authority beyond her role, faces broken relational dynamics with her husband, where she is dominated over. And Adam, who is tasked to rule creation as God's image, finds creation resisting him. The curses show us the cost of humanity's desire and attempt to define reality apart from God. We can't overthrow the creator without unraveling creation. Yet in the serpent's curse is a promise, a seed of the woman who would crush the head of the serpent. Justin Martyr said this: "He became man by the virgin, that the disobedience which proceeded from the serpent might receive its destruction in the same manner in which it derived its origin." The same humanity that rebelled will be the instrument of God's victory, a human, Jesus, the seed of a woman. I'm about to embark on a new series going from Genesis chapter 4 to Genesis chapter 11. So subscribe, you don't want to miss that. Until the next one, check out the entire series of Genesis 1 through 3 and catch up on all the context you may have missed. Or check out this video where I explain what dragons and Leviathan are in the Bible and the hidden meaning behind them. See you next time.